G'day, Dave here, and we're looking at Ecclesiastes again, looking at chapter 10 from verse 12, and particularly the contrast between wise words and foolish words. Let's read the passage first of all. We see in verse 12, words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own words, their own lips. At the beginning, their words are folly. At the end, they are a wicked madness, and fools multiply words. No one knows what's coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them? The toil of fools wearies them. They do not know the way to town. It's a pretty unflattering picture of fools. And of course, the fool is so often known by their words. They open their mouth and you see what their heart's like. They open their mouth and you get an insight into their mind, the things they're thinking about, the things they're concerned with, their own passions, their thought patterns and so on. And it's not always flattering. And the picture here is one of the fool who's effectively eating himself up with his own words. He's speaking about stuff, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he talks all the same. And people recognise that it's foolish. It starts off pretty foolish, pretty dumb. And at the beginning, you could kind of forgive it for being just foolish. But over time, when you continue to carry on this way, it actually leads to what's called wicked madness. Wicked madness. It's just crazy talk. Crazy talk that can damage people, that can damage relationships, that can destroy people. Indeed, with our words, we can do great damage. And the fool does damage with his or her words. And the fool speaks about that which he or she doesn't understand. The picture here of who knows what's coming and who can tell what's coming after them, and yet the fool will speak. The fool will make pronouncements. The fool will predict things. In the book of James, in chapter 4, it talks about the person who says, I'm going to go to this city or that city, and I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to make money, and I'm going to do all these things. And then God's response to this person is, what a fool they are. Hey, they don't know whether they're going to do this or do that tomorrow. They don't know the future. And interestingly, it picks up on an idea that we see in this book of Ecclesiastes. In James, it says they're but a mist or a vapour. And we've seen already in Hebrews this notion of meaningless. Everything is meaningless. It's the word for vapour or a mist. And then it's gone. We don't know what's coming after us. In James it says instead that the wise way to speak is, if it's God's will, we will do this or do that. Now, I was certainly confronted by this big time back when we were planning to go to Darwin. We had everything in place. It seemed like we were headed up to the Northern Territory, and it seemed like it was the will of God. And we said to people, this is what we are going to do. But it didn't happen. I got sick. We didn't leave Canberra. And one of the things that I learnt big time through this was the importance of saying, if it is God's will, or traditionally, God willing, or from the Latin, Deo volente, signing off a note, DV, if this is what God wills. Not that it's the words, but deep down it's the attitude of the heart. We humbly should recognise that we just don't know. Well, the words of the wise, by contrast, and there's only half a verse given to the words of the wise here. Look at them in verse 12. Words from the mouth of the wise are gracious. They're gracious. So you can use words to get, can't you? You can use words to get a laugh, to get attention, to get somebody to do something for you, to get people to like you. You can use words to get a job, to get a guy or get a girl. You can use words to build yourself up and tear others down. You can use words to demand or accuse or criticise or condemn. Yes, you can use words in all of those foolish ways. But the words of the wise, by contrast, are gracious. Gracious words. Words that will bring lasting change. Words that will build people up. Words that will fill people and invigor people and motivate people and challenge people. Words of encouragement, words of life. You see, the Bible encourages us to be people whose words are gracious. Words who are a blessing to other people by the words that we use. Do we know people like that? Are we people like that? You probably have the same experience that I do, that sometimes You're meeting with people and you come away feeling, I'm so glad that I spent time with that person. The nature of the conversation, their wisdom, their empathy, their love, their concern, their commitment to you, their ability to listen and to speak words of real grace, gently, kindly, to be forgiving, to be calm, to be encouraging satisfaction and contentment, to be pointing us to God, to the works of his hands, to the generous mercies that come from him, to the wonder of this world that he's made for us, leading us to worship him as our Creator God, to the wonder of him sending his Son Jesus to offer us forgiveness that we might come to him and worship him as our Father. It's interesting, in the Gospels, Jesus is talking with his followers and he asks them in John chapter 6 whether they're going to leave. And the reply in John chapter 6 and verse 68 is, where would we go? Because you alone have the words of eternal life. And friends, Jesus' words are the words of grace. Jesus' words bring grace down to earth. They make us understand that God has given us what we don't deserve. He's been generous beyond measure. He's shown mercy and kindness. He's gifted us with eternal life. If only we will trust in his words. If only we will come to Jesus and receive his words of eternal life. Friends, you can do a lot of good with words, but you can do an awful lot of damage. Words are intended to be a vehicle of blessing, to be a means of grace. And when you come to God and you receive his grace through the words of Jesus, so it can change you to show grace to others.